It was live the other day. We went on the Khalsa Foundation live Instagram, so it was live the other day. It's just been restricted. So Sikh Youth UK and Sikh Activists has been restricted. We will be going live off NSYF YouTube, Princess to Warrior Instagram, and Sikh Press Association Instagram. Tune in, follow their pages now, and get on there and make sure you follow the live stream today. That's fine. No, you're still live. No, this is already. Is it already live? This is live. And Slough Sikhs, we're live on Slough Sikhs as well, yeah? See, we need to add all them captions from this. So, Slough Sikhs. Slough Sikhs, who else is going? NSYF. Ready?
We're just waiting to go live on different
Are they live, yeah?
Instagram pages for the JAGGI Now Youth Show.
So, Shade, if you sit down and start it.
We're about to start in a couple of seconds.
We were starting our own live here. I don't know why you can't the camera. Alright, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh, yeah? So today we're here to discuss the Free JAGGI Now protest, which is this Thursday, the 3rd of December. So there's an important message before we start. So if there's a lot of guests here and it's hard to manage the whole show. So we've had a few struggles, they blocked our live and whatnot. So we're just letting you know. There's a message that I need to let you know from the family before we begin, and that is from the family themselves to the wider Sangat, yeah? And that is to, this was sent to me this morning to read out to the whole Sangat. So it says, despite the UK government's reluctance to call for JAGGI's release, it is clear that India is watching as protests have been arranged around the world. As a result, JAGGI was allowed to call the family yesterday and speak to his wife for the very first time in a long time. We must continue to put pressure on the UK government, otherwise arbitrary detention will continue. Without the support of the Sangat, we will not be able to do this on our own, and we call for you and all the Sangat to attend the protest and be JAGGI's voice. So that was a message from the family. It's a very powerful message from the family as well, to show that JAGGI's finally spoken to his wife after so long. So thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate it. We apologise for the hiccups. That's out of our control. This is obviously pressure from above to restrict us going live. They knew this show was taking place. They knew there's 20 to 30 Gurdwara organisations here coming together to be JAGGI's voice. So the protest on Thursday, the 3rd of November, will mark his 5 years. 5 years of illegal detention, abduction in the first 10 days, and torture, and these were inhumane torture methods used on him. The officers' names have been put out there and will continuously to keep putting them out there. Everyone knows who those Punjab police officers are. But what's so important is why we're doing this protest is because for the last 5 years, we knew the British government were involved. But now it's clear cut, and evidence has come, and JAGGI himself is taking the British government to court. So there's an ongoing legal court case where JAGGI is suing the British government because of MI5 and MI6 and West Midlands Police and many other authorities have colluded past intelligence and gave information of the seva JAGGI used to do in the community, where he used to look after Shaheed families. He had a website where he used to blog. He used to document the atrocities committed by the Indian and the British state on the Sikh Panth. So it's so important that you know what his din is to the Qawm. And today we're going to go around. So if Bhavan, if you can get up and you just take the screens around, and Rajan, if you're going to take that, I'm going to start by bringing in Shamsher Singh and Jasveer Singh. So guys, you're part of the whole campaign from the start. You've seen how bad it is. Shamsher, what would you like to say to the Sangat today from NSYF?
I think since the start of the case, UK has consistently tried to downplay the issue. India has tried to portray the issue as purely a legal one, that this is a terrorism case, JAGGI's have been involved in assassination of RSS leaders, and that this should be dealt with as a law and order issue. But we know from the start that this is a politically motivated case. When the UN came out and said that JAGGI was arrested because he's a Sikh and because of his activism, particularly because of his website, And then later on, obviously, when the revelations came out that the MI5 was directly involved in handing information over to India, India and UK have consistently worked together for decades against the Sikh Qawm. They want all of our political masale, they want all of these political issues to be dealt with as law and order issues. And that is a track that we have to consistently try to take this conversation out. This is a political masala, it's one of our Azadi, and JAGGI, like many others, is being used as a pawn. I think JAGGI hurts us more because he's a British citizen and because, you know, he's quite young and he went there in the circumstances with his family, his wife and everything. But yeah, like it's super important that we all go to the protest on the 3rd of November, that everyone turns up, because the protest really bugs India, it bugs the UK. They want to downplay this, they want to show, like right in the start, I remember when it was being covered, Captain Ravinder Singh said that the only people supporting JAGGI are his family, and it's just a handful of people. So the protests are super important to show the wider support of the Sangat. The Indian state itself is saying that there's no support for JAGGI, so it's super important that everyone watching, everyone here today, tells their family and their friends. It's one day, 5 years. It's a really important milestone in his case. So come on November the 3rd, 12 o'clock, Downing Street.
I want to bring in Jasveer Singh from the Sikh Press Association. So Jasveer Singh, you've been part of working with the media over the last 5 years, raising these voices as much as you can to a national scale. So how do you think international media and national media, and how on the ground even Sikh media has been working with the campaign? Do you think it's good enough? And do you think national media has only just jumped on it recently?
There was an explosion in the coverage of JAGGI's case a few months back when the revelations came out about MI5's involvement in JAGGI's imprisonment. That issue has helped us get more coverage, but it's a shame that that has come only via inside information from MI5 and government establishments and I guess freedom of information requests to find that information out, when within the Sikh community we've been talking about such issues, collusion between India and the UK for months now, for decades now, and it's well known, it's well documented also, and this is something that the Sikh community, we amplify lots, and the media is only just starting to take seriously. So it's important that we use JAGGI's situation now, especially at such a significant landmark as 5 years of imprisonment, to highlight that this issue is not specifically about Jagtar Singh Johal. What this is about is his situation encapsulates a long-running issue that the Sikh Qawm have always had when it comes to oppressive state regimes and what happens to our people because of that conflict within the Sikh community when we're facing up to these oppressive regimes. So we use situations like JAGGI's to amplify an understanding of the Sikh community through the media, and in doing so we still need to cover basics, and that means when it comes to protests we need large numbers. The media are going to care less if it's a few hundred people or just a few dozen, but if 10,000 people turn up to Downing Street on November 3rd to protest, then the media are going to have no choice but to cover it. They're going to have no choice but to turn their attention to this mass movement. So that's why we're all here together. This isn't something that's just all fun and games. A lot of people here, we work together when we need to, but at the same time we're not always on the same page. But when it comes to important issues such as our Sikh political prisoners, we come together, we work together, and we plan and we strategize, and we support each other, because this is an important issue that is across the board for all the Sikh community of all different types of backgrounds and statuses. So November the 3rd, the protest, if we want media's attention, we need to make it as big as possible.
Definitely, and I just want to elaborate on what Jasveer Singh's saying. So how it's a mass movement. There's 11 protests being called on the 5-year anniversary, on the eve of the 5-year anniversary, November the 3rd, and so that's important. Look where you are, if you're in America, Canada, wherever you are across the globe, Australia, Punjab even, and now the UK. Obviously the UK, there's a new one in Hong Kong for the first time ever. There's a movement starting in Hong Kong for the Free JAGGI Now campaign. So it's so good that across the globe there's going to be countless protests on the eve of the 5 years. So it's so important that we all know that. Make sure you're supporting your local Gurdwara, contacting them, harassing the general secretaries, the state secretaries, making sure the Gyanis are doing a ardas for JAGGI every day. Make sure the Prachar is coming off the stage, even if it's 2 minutes at the end. It's so important. And bringing it back to the Gurdwara and bringing it back to Sikhi, I want to bring one of the Sikh Prachar groups into this. We've got Seek to Inspire Sevadar here, and his family who are part of Princess to Warrior as well. So Bhai Sahib Harjeet Singh, he's been an active Sevadar in the community on the ground for many, many years. So Harjeet Singh, if you'd like to give your views of why it's important for Sikhi to bring this back to Sikhi, connect people to Sikhi and support the activism on the ground.
As you've heard from the brothers here today, how important it is to actually attend this protest. But I suppose today it's 100 years since Punjab Sahib Saka. Every page you turn in history is about sacrifices. Why? Because a people that loves freedom, justice, and actually stands up for others is today facing constant harassment. And the fact that when you've got a person that's born, bred in this country, been entrapped away from his family, away from his loved ones, away from his friends, I think we've got to come back to that issue: is why is it happening to our community? But again, we're a nation, we're a GOM that always stands up. And I do want to stress one thing, is that wherever you are, in your gugas, in your groups, in your social networks, not just the upbringing, the Sikh community itself, but you need to go beyond that as well. Look at other organisations, raise their concerns with Amnesty International, other organisations out there, but also talk to different communities, different faith groups, or different communities that also believe the same values that we share as well. And I think this country does share those values, but we have to put pressure on whoever it is, our MPs, people of authority, people that are in that power, to actually realise who this person is. This person is a husband, he's a son, he's a brother. So we have to understand the human face of this tragedy. For 5 years, it's unbelievable. 5 years and the injustice that this family's been accruing. So please support the campaign, be part of it, and encourage others, not just our Sikh community, but a wider community out there, because they do share our values as well.
Thank you, Harjeet Singh. We really appreciate that. And Seek to Inspire, along with our Sevadars and other groups and Gurdwara, we've been doing a job for the last nearly 2 years. Each and every month we do a 7-day job, ASAP job at Sri Guru Singh Sabha Southall for all political and human rights cases abroad and in the UK, and all those cases that are ongoing. So, Seek to Inspire do massive seva on the ground. They're helping do Amrit Sanchars on the ground and whatnot. So it's so important to bring people back from bring that level on the ground where activism and Sikhi and Gurmat is at the forefront. It's so important. I want to bring the girls in, Diratko and Derko, who have been doing a lot of seva on the ground as well, and they're always active at the protests, they're always active online, helping support all the events. So girls, just give your feedback one at a time.
Right, so very good you keep there. So first I want to start with about the protest being on the 3rd of November. We can all take days off and come down and support our brother. And that is really, really important to do. And also with this work-life balance that we've got now and being able to work from home, there is so much more flexibility with it as well. And to come down and really show that support will really amplify, and JAGGI will be able to see the support he's getting from the UK, and it will be from all of us. And we've really got to remember that it could be any one of us, and this is so important for us to stand together and really, really push this, and just show how united we are with this, because we all really believe that he should be home with us all.
And like Gaurav was saying, JAGGI, he is our brother, and it's 5 years where he's been sat in India, and no contact. Only today we found out that JAGGI, he's actually been able to speak with his wife, which is eye-opening, because we need to remember that this is a son, he's also a husband. So remember to come down to the protests and meet the family as well, and understand what pain they must be going through as well. And to continue that, so after attending the protest, also take it further into your guru guys, have conversations and raise awareness as much as you can. Keep it online, as active as you can, use the hashtags and learn more, speak to people outside of our faith to understand a different perspective, and reach out to our high authorities, as we've discussed already. Connect with your MPs, write letters, and push for as much as you can to connect and make as much awareness.
And also, if you do need help writing any kind of professional emails and how to talk to people in a professional kind of working environment, contact people, let us know, because we can all be there and support you guys, because we can all support each other.
Well, it's fantastic feedback from our sisters and Paisab as well. So remember, if those who have joined us late and you've just realised that our live got blocked, so we had to go on other pages, the Free Jaggi Now protest on the 3rd of November, 11 protests called across the globe. Make sure you're all there. The UK one, this is for the UK Sangata. Make sure you're all there. Pressure your Gurdwara. Yeah, we all come out at Bandi Shore or Gurpubs. We have all our jalebiya and samosa. We have a great time. Remember what those sacrifices from Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj all the way to the current day. Yeah, that light that shone many years ago, 553 years ago. Yeah, all the way to the current day. Bandi Shore of the injustices and everyone who stood, and Maharaj who rescued all those political prisoners. There's still political prisoners in jail today, and one of them's from the UK. Who would have ever thought it? A British-born Gursikh who just blogged about the atrocities of 84 has been targeted. I'm going to bring Harvinder Singh from Naujawani in. Pracharak, he's been doing Sikhi Prachar and working in Gurdwara for many, many years, doing camps with the Sikh Education Council and his own project with Naujawani. So Harvinder Singh, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Thank you for coming. Just give your feedback, what we're talking about. 550 years of Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj to the current day and Sikh activism, please.
Yeah, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. As some of the other people have already said, it's important that people at this kind of time put into context what's going on with Jaggi, with Sikh history and Sikh philosophy. So anyone who's familiar with our work at Naujawani knows that we're not exactly that. We don't put much faith into the idea and notion of protesting and rallying, but that doesn't mean you don't show up. Because a protest doesn't mean you turn up to try and get Jaggi to be freed. That might not necessarily happen, but you turn up because the community is putting in and because it's the right thing to do and because that's what we all go and show support. And there's lots of other side things that come out of that. Ever since Guru Nanak Sahib came to this earth, it's one of the main things that Sikhs have been trying to practice is how to affect socio-political change and how to make a difference and influence the world around us and bring things to for the betterment of all of humankind. When you come to something like the rally, or you come to something even like today to try and organize, what you're doing is you're putting out a marker and you're saying that you believe in this idea that of the house of Guru Nanak, of discourse, of engaging with other people and trying to make improvements to our lives and to the world around us. It's crazy to think it's been 5 years since Jaggi was picked up. It's pretty mad. I remember when it first happened, like I think it was only 1 week after that, 2 weeks after that, we were outside the Foreign and Commonwealth Office in Westminster. And I remember Shamsher was from NSYF was very, very tense and was, to say the least, but was really going in hard and was doing the right things and saying the right things. But even at the time when we spoke about it off camera and other places, we didn't think it would be 5 years later and we're still here. And that's kind of crazy to think about that. But look beyond even Jaggi and you see the state of our Qawm and the way that political prisoners are dealt with and the way that we as a community don't still really organize ourselves politically to make change and make change happen. That's something that needs to change. And so I'd urge anyone who's watching this, come down on Thursday, 3rd of November. It's in 4 days' time, 1 o'clock. Get yourselves to Westminster and work out what it is that we're doing while we're there. And you're there to protest, you're there to rally, but at the same time we're there to be there with one another. You're there to organize, you're going to be there through Bani, and you're going to be there through the Panth together. That's a very important point, and that's something that everyone should be trying to attain to. It's certainly something that I'd hope a lot of people would come from different backgrounds. And last point I'll say, anyone who's got any kind of fear that you get targeted when you go to these things or you don't want to show your face, you know, you were born, if you're a Sikh, you're born a target. You got a target on your head, you got a target on your back. So don't ever spend your life worrying about being a target. We got a different way of thinking about birth and death, and Sikh need to start getting back to that way of thinking about birth and death. We ain't like everyone else. You don't worry about dying. What's the worst they're going to do? They're going to kill you. You just come back next lifetime, we'll do it again. Come back another 10 lifetimes, we'll do it again. Stop being so afraid, come together, Pyar Din Alao, and then we see where we go on Thursday.
Harvinder, just going on what you just said, why do you believe there's fear? And do you think there's a lot of fear in each household talking about just the Jaggi campaign?
Yeah, of course there's fear. I don't think it's necessarily, it's not an unwarranted fear. but it's an unwarranted fear or for everyday people, but it's an unwarranted fear from a Sikh point of view. A Sikh is never supposed to be afraid of these mundane things. A Sikh is only supposed to be afraid of Paramatma. You have a fear for the Akal Purkh. You don't have a fear for our government ne aa kar dena, our bande ne aa kar dena. What's the worst they're going to do? Like, kill you. That's it. That's the worst they're going to do. Je thodi Jameer mar gaye, fir ta tusi udda hi mare hoye ha. So that kind of fear needs to be removed. People need to be able to have these conversations, talk about Jaggi, talk about Jaswant Singh Azad, talk about Kulbir Singh Parapend. Why are these people still in prison? Why are we all still not being able to deal with it at a political level? Even if we free these people, our problems ain't over. The problems are still there from a political point of view. The problems are still there around us, whether you're here in England, you're in Punjab, or you're anywhere else in the world. And so that fear needs to go away. The way people can get away from that is bring Bani into your life. Start reading Gurbani with your family, with your friends. Discuss these things. Get closer to the Guru and start having conversations about it. That'll change your life. Completely changes your life. Changes your perspective on everything.
Thank you, Harvinder Singh. Just another update so you know, travel requires, you must be thinking how you're going to get there. So at the moment we've got Gurdwara from Southall, Sri Guru Singh Sabha, Havelock, Guru Nanak Road. We've got Singh Sabha Slough, Shihi Way. You've got Guru Nanak Prakash Coventry, Guru Arjan Dev Gurdwara Derby, Guru Tegh Bahadur Gurdwara Leicester, and G&G Smethwick. So there's coaches available and transport provided from the Guru Guards for you to attend the protest on Thursday the 3rd. Now there's been a bit of fear about the travel arrangements for the Sankirtan in London, so the sisters are going to just give you an update on the trains and the troops.
So there was an update that there will be strikes on the 3rd, but they've been said that they're not going to happen. So the tubes will be, you can come on the tube. And now with the new Elizabeth line as well, it's so much more easier to get into London. So travel time won't be much as well. And coming from different areas, you can come straight into London on the train and any type of public transport as well.
Thank you girls for the updates for that. Transport is very important, making sure we all get there on time and whatnot. I'm going to bring it back to Watford Singh Sabha Gurdwara now. Jagmohan Singh is a representative from Watford Singh Sabha Gurdwara. Thank you for coming. Why is it important for Guru Card across the country like yourselves? Will your Guru Card be coming? Will your local Sangat be coming? You're from Hertfordshire, Watford's in Hertfordshire. Will your Sangat be coming? Have you put the announcement? What have you done as a Gurdwara to push for the Free Jaggi Now campaign?
Well, ever since the information, when we actually received the information from 5 years ago, Sri Guru Singh Sabha Gurdwara Watford, just like many other Gurdwara sahibs up and down the United Kingdom and around the world, with Maharaj's support, what we've always done is shared that information with our Sangat on stage in both Punjabi and English, and many times whenever there's been updates on Jaggi, be it anything, even information from Gurpreet Singh, his older brother, anything like that has always been shared with the Sangat, because knowledge is so important and information is so important. Now, we all know that from 1984 and 1984, that atrocities, torture, being picked up, being labelled, these specific actions and these targets against our community, everyone knows all that, but this is personal a lot more because this is a British citizen as well. So we have common ground or some form of a link, because majority of us are also born and raised and educated in this country. So that's why this is a lot more personal, because this can actually happen to anyone. Be it a couple of months down the line or a couple of years down the line, where's it ever going to end? Now the thing is from the Gurdwara perspective, we always have to take our asra and support from Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji and Gurbani as much as possible. Therefore, Chaupai Sahibs, Ardasa have been done for Jagtar Singh Johal, but many other Sikh political prisoners that are languishing at the moment in Punjab and Indian prisons for many, many years, who have even served their time. But even engaging with councillors and MPs, whenever there's been petitions, and we've had countless petitions and letters. Now, obviously, I'm not a big fan of them, but if at the end of the day, if we're all collectively going to do it, I'm not going to be against it as well. So we got to look at all channels and all avenues as much as we possibly can. With be it a rally, even a protest as well, we'll be attending that day. We've shared the information with our Sangat as well through our social media, WhatsApp, and on stage in both Punjabi and English. We're going to be taking the trains, so then obviously the ideal stations closest to Watford Gurdwara Sahib are Watford Junction and Watford the Met Line. And going into London from Watford, we're actually very lucky that we have at least 3 or 4 stations that on that day where transport is a lot more easier to go into London as well. But it's just a humble request that this is personal. Numbers make noise, and especially in this case in particular with our brother Jagtar Singh Johal, in this situation we have to be the voice and the support of our brother as much as we possibly can.
Thank you, Jagmohan Singh. We really appreciate it, and it's great to see Gurdwara supporting Buddy and Benji. If you two guys want to come in and just give your thoughts on the importance of the activism and some of the notes you've been writing before we started, please.
So I'm just going to say just a quick, short and sweet call for action, really. So Sikhs around the world are known and recognised for the work we do for others, be that Langar Seva or providing support for those in need. And this is important work, and we should continue to do so. However, we must address the needs and the issues that are within the Sangat as well. So we need to turn up to show support for our own issues.
I think more on the activism side of things, that is a repulsive move on the part of the Indian government, who have done this kind of in an attempt to silence Sikh activists. This isn't an isolated case, it happens all the time. And they've tried to essentially scare us into remaining silent on these issues. With regards to the UK government, I believe that, well, all I can say is that their inaction speaks volumes and it makes them complicit. It's shocking, but it's not very surprising. But every time they try to silence us, our voice needs to get a bit louder. So as Kira said, that I fully believe that we need to show up for ourselves. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Son and Buddy. Sunny, you're a boxing coach and a Sevadar for Ignishanna. You work with hundreds of kids each week, dedicating your time, taking kids off the streets and putting them into Sangat, yeah? And coming into the Sangat and you're hearing about these atrocities. How does it make you feel as a coach, as a Sevadar? And you know, some of the notes you've been writing about the protests, just give your feedback to the Sangat and look at the camera. Cheers, bro.
Jagtar's detention is based on discriminatory grounds, which has stripped him of his basic human rights. And we as a community need to come together, and we have the responsibility of exposing and resolving this unfortunate situation. As a minority group and a boxing coach, I believe that working with the youth allows the opportunity to develop their character and give them the confidence to confront situations which may jeopardise their human rights. So in future, misfortunate events like this don't occur again.
Thank you, Buddy. Really appreciate it. Tish Kaur, Cause Legal, you've come and worked around the community for the last 2 years. You recently did a Sukhmani Sai part in the Gurdwara, recognising 2 years' work of your organisation. How important is it for Sevadars like yourself in the community, from a legal perspective, to be behind this campaign?
Yeah, so it's very important for legal professionals to also be involved in a campaign like this. We get cases every day as legal professionals, but a case of this nature that affects us as a community directly is so important, because one day, as many have said, it could happen to one of us. And so I would encourage other legal professionals, if you haven't already done so, to come forward and support the campaign like this. Just to raise a few points that I've noticed throughout being part of the campaign the last 5 years, is we've seen that there have been various breaches of human rights, of Jaggi's human rights, namely Article 3, which is the right to freedom of torture and inhumane and degrading treatment. And as we know, Jaggi's been tortured, and he's presented letters explaining his torture, and this is compelling and credible evidence that would be produced if tried in the UK. A judge or jury would find this credible evidence that Jaggi has been tortured. Secondly,
a right to a fair trial, Article 6. Jaggi hasn't had a right to a fair trial. He's had to date 191 pre-trial hearings. That's unheard of if we look at the justice system in the UK. Secondly, 83 trial hearings. That's a lot for one person to go through that's been accused of various offences. And just to mention, on his 80th trial hearing, they presented no prosecution witnesses were brought for cross-examination. Every person that is accused of an offence has a right to cross-examine the prosecution witnesses. Jaggi wasn't able to do that. So without a proper due process, how can Jaggi be expected to have a fair trial? He's not being given that chance. And then, as the Babaji mentioned earlier, that for the first time in a very long time, Jaggi was able to speak to his wife. And again, that's a breach of his Article 8 right to family and private life. He's allowed, say you were a prisoner in the UK, in prison here, you'd be allowed to speak to your family on the phone, you'd be allowed visits with your family. And Jaggi's not able to do this again. And just to briefly bring in, we also saw the case of the 5 Singhs in the UK. Now, the raids happened on the 5 Singhs, so they could go and find evidence on Jaggi. Again, nothing was found. And we've heard about the MI5 issue that came out, where we all knew that the British government and Indian governments had colluded, but again that was confirmed when that article came out and the news caught on to that. So just to recap, I would really encourage other legal professionals to get involved and offer whatever assistance or expertise you can in Jaggi's case. It's so important. And that's all. If you could all come on Thursday to the protest and between 12 to 3. Thank you,
Tish. So going on some of the legal stuff that Tish has said and some of the charges. So Jaggi has been charged. They've got no evidence, but that makes him, when you've been charged on these charges, these trumped up charges in India, in Punjab, and UK are complicit to this, now he faces the death sentence on those charges. Let me make that clear to you. If he's convicted, he will be given the death sentence. So now he's charged, he's facing a death sentence. What are you going to do as a Sangha? Are you going to support him, his wife, his family? Or are you going to just sit back, click like and share? Come on, you need to wake up to reality. Everyone needs to be there on Thursday. Very important. We've got media and press teams here. We've got Najwan organisations here. We've got activists and Sikh Prachar groups here. We've got activists. We've got legal teams here. We've got Sevadars who've been doing dedicated work in the community. We've got Dora Prabandhaks here. There's so much collective as a community. We've got so much. There's nothing. We're not sure of nothing. Why is it that we're so scared to support our brother? So I'm going to bring over here now, I'm going to bring some of the Sevadars here who have come from universities. Now these are activists on the university grounds from UCL and LSE. So if they take it on their Benji, you come first and you speak first. If I bring you in, you're part of LSE. I came to your university the other day. It was really nice to see some great faces there. And I thank you all for coming as well. You know, like, it's not always, it's very refreshing to see students like yourself come into Bantik activism. We usually see Sevadars from Sikh Socks going to other, Free Palestine movements or Black Lives Matter, which isn't bad, but why is there a gata of our activists? So it's so important that you're here. So if you guys just in your own time, all 4 of you, just give some feedback before we go to some of the other organisations. Thank you.
So Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. I think in the past week or so, or 2 weeks, universities across England have been celebrating Bandi Shore and telling the story of behind Bandi Shore Divas to their peers. And it's about time that we actually bring what we learned from that story into practice. So Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj, obviously, as we know, they helped these 52 political prisoners of that time, and that's how Bandi Shore happened. But today we have these political prisoners, Sikh political prisoners, such as Jaggi Singh Johal, and we really need to step up the game here as students, as the future generation of the Sikh club in England and around the world. Why aren't we raising our voices on these matters that could be any one of us as well, imagine going to India to get married and being picked up from just arrested like that out of nowhere and being stuck in that prison for 5 years now, and only being able to speak to your wife first time in a very, very long time. So as students, it's our duty to sort of raise awareness about this. We can't just be speaking about our history without implementing it in our present lives today. So please, everyone, if you have, please do make time to come down on the 3rd of November and take part in this protest.
Thank you, Benji.
I think I agree with everything that you said. I think it's really important for every generation to be involved with issues like this. And it's not just about a Sikh political issue, which we should all be behind, but it's also tapping into issues of human rights and colonial legacies. So I think it's really important that students put into practice what they're learning at uni as well, and the networks they're building, and the social skills and other skills that they're learning from attending these other protests as well, and put that into practice in a Sikh space. And if we won't, then no one else will be tackling issues like this.
Just like Deepa Baji said, that we've seen the youth come to the streets to protest about Yemen, about climate change, Black Lives Matter, but there's that lack of support for JAGGI. Now that this is a contemporary case, and the youth need to get behind this, and we've seen in the past that when the Sangha gets together, it makes a huge difference, because the government gets under pressure that this is actually a very significant case. And so we as a youth are always encouraged to look at contemporary events. So we need to look into JAGGI's case as well. We need to make ourselves aware of what's happening with JAGGI, and not just make ourselves aware, but also take action by coming to protest, by supporting our brother. And it's been 5 years since JAGGI's been in jail, and there's hardly been anything done. And unis are seen as institutions of research, so we need to utilize that Department of Research and urge them to look into JAGGI's case, what is being done, and actually urge them to look at facts from the Sikh youth and the Sikh community, because there's a lot of bias going around within the British government and they're presenting wrong facts, and that needs to be looked into as well. And just a final note to the youth, that Sikhs are born activists. From the time of Guru Nanak Dev Ji to Guru Gobind Singh Ji, and even now we see activists, and that's never going to change. And the youth need to actually connect more to that activism side as well. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki
Fateh. I think it's really important for students to get involved in the Free JAGGI campaign, because as university students we have the freedom and the space to put these issues at the forefront and start these conversations about it within our own community and the wider community. So, like for example, we had a UCL Diwali event, and we're trying to raise awareness of the Free JAGGI campaign. And there were so many people that came to us afterwards, and we're thankful for explaining what was happening, as they had completely no idea what was going on. And I think by starting these conversations, then slowly pressure can start to grow through this exercise. And the protest on Thursday is a fantastic opportunity for the Bund to unite and to show our support for JAGGI and raise awareness of the issue as a whole.
Thank you to all four of you for coming. Really appreciate it, from the campaign team and all the servers out here. Honestly, it's so important for the uni student to have a bridge with the Bantik activists on the ground. So really good that you guys come. Just carry on enjoying your food and drinks, and we'll come back to you in a bit, guys. Just if you joined late, Thursday the 3rd of November, this Thursday at Downing Street from midday to 3 p.m. there will be a protest for the eve of the 5 years of JAGGI's illegal abduction at the hands of the British and the Indian government. Make sure you're there showing support. We've got a new Prime Minister, apparently Rishi Sunak. Let's see where his loyalties lie. Do they lie with the Sikh Panth, or do they lie with the British government? Do they lie with India? Do they lie with Modi? Just make sure that we all support the Sikh Panth's narrative. Baji from the uni just said a very valid point. There's been research out there at universities, and the narrative is an anti-Bantik one, and it's done by anti-Bantik elements. There's reports being done on activists like ourselves, me, other brothers who are here. There's raids being taken on our house where one of the sisters was talking about earlier. It's so important that you know that the narratives out there aren't Bantik, and what is Bantik and what isn't. So it's so important that you tune in and check in with all the people who are here. their pages because they're going to give the authentic narrative. Follow the Free Jaggi Now campaign. If you're not following it, make sure you, all your Unity Sikh Society, all your members are following it, all the seminars, make sure all your organizations are following it. It's so important. We're going to come to some of the groups on the ground. Now, Basic Sikhi is another Sikh Prachar group by Tejinder Singh from come all the way from East London today, and he's going to just speak a bit about the importance of why Basic Sikhi are here, why they support the Jaggi campaign, and even why Bhai Jagraj Singh was a solid activist on the ground as well.
One thing we need to understand as a Sikh organisation is that Sikhi isn't just about our history. Sikhi is about what we're doing now as well. And it's not just about telling our history and then learning and then just coming close to Guru Sahib because of that. What are we doing on the ground now? What are we doing actively on the ground now? One thing that Bhai Jagraj Singh Ji said, even on his final speech, was that we can't lay our faith into the establishments. We can't put focus on what they can do for us. We need to take it into our own hands and do something active. And if you look at Jaggi, it's not just that he's an activist, he's also just one of us. He's a normal person that has a family. He works, he does all of this stuff, and he's been taken abroad, abducted, and put into prison for 5 years solid now, with no charges whatsoever. If it was one of us, if it was one of our family members, how would we react? What kind of support would we look for? One thing that I do want to definitely say, when it came to the Kisan Morcha, we showed how we could show up as a panth. We showed how we could get together. We can do the same now. And all of us, as youth, as even the older community, get your Gurdwara involved. Get them to organise trips for the 3rd. It's not that far away, but it's not too late to organise these trips as well. We all need to be there together, all the unis. We've got uni talks booked before the 3rd, and we're going to be speaking about it at these uni talks to get everyone down. The one thing is that numbers put pressure. And we need to show the wider community what's going on. There's a lot of the British community right now that do not know that there's a British man detained in India against his rights, being tortured. When they hear this, they will also raise their voices. We can't just be people that are feeding people on the streets and then not getting heard for what we should be doing. We need to be out there not just doing the prachar, but being active in the community as well. So please, beinti ya sareyan nu, come to this protest. Show up with your families, show up with your friends, and get involved.
Next, we're going to go to Jagraj Singh from Sikh Welfare. Now, Sikh Welfare do youth work in the community, they do projects, they do prachar in Punjab. So, Jagraj Singh, just a few words from you, your organisation, on the importance of why Sikh Welfare support the Free Jaggi Now campaign, and whatever other vichara you want to give to the Sangata. Thank you.
If we look just at the charity itself, we have a lot of work with the youth, and one thing that we forget as youth is why it's so important to be behind stuff like this. If we look, go back into the battles of Chamkaur Sahib, we've got Baba Ajit Singh Ji, Baba Jagraj Singh Ji, 18 years old, 15 years old. You come forward a little bit, we go 100 years, 200 years in the front, we go 1978, 1984, and even to this day. A lot of Gursikhs that we see in the videos and the footage that we're so blessed to have from so many Gursikhs doing these sevas, a lot of them have Kade Dadiyan, a lot of them are my age, a little bit younger, a little bit older. So it's always been the riti of all of the youth to stand right at the front whenever there's any oppression or any tyranny. The youth should never back down, but the youth should be standing right at the front, shoulder to shoulder with their brothers. So one beinti to all of the youth that may be listening in two minds whether to come to the protest or any other seva that you can do, is don't think twice about it. In our own bloodline, it has always been there to stand right at the front, never to back down from these things. And if you are the youth and you think that, how can it be me, how can I come forward? Always look at it like this. The elders have always built those bridges for us. A lot of the seva that the youth do today, the elders have put those bridges in place already. But think about who will walk on those bridges. It's our job. The youth needs to walk and the youth needs to bring others with them as well. So never think that you are small or you're outnumbered. You walk yourself, others will come as well. And just to finish off, why else should the youth be involved? Very simply, if you look in Punjab, if you look in other places where there is a lot of oppression, you'll see that it could be anyone. It could be a family man. This man himself was just like any one of us, like Benji here or Bhai Sahib here. When they picked him up, they didn't look at his age, what background he was, what's the level he was in his Sikhi, what kind of in what kind of things he was doing at work, what kind of things he was doing in his job. Picked him up just for the fact that he was standing against oppression and tyranny. And that is anyone standing here, anyone with any gursik that has a dastar on their head or a dada, it's everyone's job to do that. So it could be anyone else in the future. The youth, a lot of people in general have a bad habit of pointing fingers at others when their own hands are dirty. Let's not be those people. If you want to make a change, do it yourself, wash our own hands, look within ourselves, stand up and attend this protest on Thursday.
Really, really powerful words from Manoj Dalal Singh. Thank you so much. A massive representation from Sikh Welfare. They come to all of our annual Shahidi tournaments that we started. Next year will be 10 years. So JAGGI was one of the ones, Sevadars, who helped start those Shahidi tournaments. So 10 years ago we started, and next tournament we took. Sikh Welfare have been at every tournament since. So thank you to them. Big Haj, who sent the Dalal Singh today, he personally couldn't make it, but he does massive seva on the ground as well. So thank you to him. I want to come back to, before I come back to Shamshir Singh and Jasveer Singh to finish off, and myself, I want to bring in Jazz from Sikh Youth. He's just going to say a few words to the camera.
Gaganad Mama Badio Parna Shane Kao, K to Jamandio Surma, Abdu Jan Kodao. It's time to get ready now. JAGGI's been taken. We need to bring him back. That's our only motive now. It's been 5 years. He hasn't seen his wife, his family. They've only just heard from him today. Been to all the Nojan, all the elders, all the mothers, fathers out there, that we need to be there on the 5th of November. I'm going to say it twice, everyone's going to say it with me. Free JAGGI now! Free JAGGI now! Free JAGGI now! Free JAGGI now!
Thank you, Jazz Singh. I really appreciate your words and input there. It was so important to bring it back to reality. Why JAGGI, a normal family guy, just got married 2 weeks after his marriage. He's walking with his wife on his honeymoon, a bag wrapped around his head and thrown into the back of a van. You all heard the story. For 10 days he was brutally tortured, inhumanely electrocuted on his sensitive parts on his body. This is insane. And where did they get that information? They got that information from the UK government. So this is why we're going to Downing Street. We're not going to the Indian High Commission. We've been there countless times. We're going to UK government because they're the ones who gave intelligence on JAGGI. So this is the binti from the family. JAGGI suing the British government. So why are we so feared and scared to stand against the British government? It's because it's on our doorstep now. Like our brother from Sikh Welfare just said, we have to be on the front line. Everyone needs to be there. Make your calls, pick your phones up tonight, ring your family, ring your friends. You all got family WhatsApp groups. Put the poster in there. It's on the pages now. Check out the Sikh Youth page, Free JAGGI Now page, NSYF, Princess to Warrior, Sikh Welfare, Basic Sikh Press Association, all the orgs. I can't name everyone. Let me just bring it back another a few pegs. Please think. Look at the Gurdwara backing it on the ground. Singh Sabha Sauful, Singh Sabha Slough, Guru Nanak Gurdwara Smede, Singh Sabha Watford are here, Sri Guru Singh Sabha Slough, Sauful, I've said that, Guru Arjan Dev Gurdwara Derby, Guru Tegh Bahadur Leicester, all these major cities. What's wrong with Yorkshire? What's wrong with some of the other Gurdwaras? There's 350 Gurdwara in this country. And why is it only the 6-7 that bring it to the 84 rally, to bring it to the JAGGI campaign? So there's so many Gurdwara. If you don't want to do double up in those areas, support that other Gurdwara that have booked it, back it, make sure you fill that coach. So important. Bringing it back to Shamshir Singh. Now let me go to Jasveer Singh first, then we'll bring it in final at the end with me and Shamshir Singh. Jasveer Singh, any final points before we end the show in the next few minutes?
Yeah, an important final point. So with the Sikh Press Association, one of the main things I'm often asked is give us an update on the JAGGI situation. What's the latest update? And now we're coming to just 5 years of JAGGI being in prison. The latest significant update is that the Indian judicial system has finally got to the stage where they're asking him guilty or not guilty. Now let's say that again. It's taken them 5 years to actually get to the stage where they're asking JAGGI on certain cases guilty or not guilty. And of course he's responded not guilty. But if we think about how ludicrous that is, if we think about how ridiculous that is, that it's taken 5 years to even reach the stage where they're asking him, are you guilty or not guilty, we understand that there's a lot of awareness that needs to be raised. There's a lot more understanding that we need to further, not just to the wider public, but also within our own community. And there's a case of, pardon me, there's a case of a lady called Nazneen Zaghari Ratcliffe. She was a political prisoner in Iran of she was a British citizen as well. That case had started, I think, approximately 18 months before Jagtar Singh Johhal's case. She is now free, and there's been a lot more stronger statements coming from our government and political figures when it comes to her case in comparison to Jaggi's case. And that's something that we need to change, and that's something that we can change. We're starting a new regime under a new Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, and this is the time to actually make him take notice of this masala, of this Bandik agenda that the Sikh-Qawm have here in the UK. We have means to actually explain the issue when it comes to what we are facing with Jagtar Singh Johal. There's a great report called The Criminalization of Sikh Descent from the National Sikh Youth Federation. These are the kind of means of understanding that we want to further and push, and it starts with actually firstly mobilization, coming together, getting the right heads to turn our way and see that the Sikh community, here's one thing that they feel very passionate about, and actually it isn't insignificant things like getting that road name changed or things like that that are often pushed, but it's actually the life and death situations that some of our family are in, such as Jagtar Singh Johal. So again, we've got means to make noise and get noticed, and at a minimum everyone should be taking to social media, and we should be flooding all social media, which is our biggest media platform that we all have equal access to now, to make people aware of the Free Jaggi Now movement and everything that comes behind it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasveer Singh. And bringing it back to social media, like this is our biggest platform, and even today we were restricted. So we all want to rely on these media pages. And today, again, we didn't even go off the Sikh Youth because we were restricted from that for 4 years. We've had to go on the Sikh Activists, which was working a few weeks ago. And today, of all of a sudden, they've censored that as well. So look, we can't even depend on social media. We have to depend on our voices, our voices, and our on-the-ground activism. You know, there's a lot of people that just sit on social media and just talk, and honestly, sometimes we don't get nowhere like that. You need to come on the ground. Look here, everyone's come out of their cozy houses today to be Jaggi's voice, and I'm very thankful that they all came. But it's so important. Baji just mentioned the case of Nazanin Ratcliffe. You know, like, they forked out billions to get our own, and yet they still haven't even called for the release and return of Jagtar Singh Johal. And that's what we're demanding on Thursday, the release and return. Not just the release, because they could release him and leave him in India on bail for 10-15 years. We want the release and return of Jaggi to his family in the UK. We're not expecting or demanding anything less. That's what we're demanding as a campaign and as Sevadars of the Qawm. Shamsher, this campaign for the last 5 years, they've had attempts to disrupt it. They've done countless times. They've pressured Jaggi's wife with immigration issues. They've raided our houses, put our women through all sorts. My sister's on court cases because of this. How much disruption have they gone? We've took it back to them. We, at the start of when they raided us to find paperwork or anything linked to Jagtar Singh Johal, we banned the West Midlands Police. And we're going to continue. That ban stays and it's in order and in place. You are not welcome on our platform. They have CTU officers who are taking, they will document things and bring that back on the ground to target Sikh activists, just to disrupt the Jaggi campaign. There's Prachar, you can just Google whatever you want, go online and Google it. You can find the amount of disruption tactics they've used. This government prevent scheme. People have come, political prisoners in this UK have been released in the last year or two, have been put on prevent schemes. They're not allowed to go in Gurdwara, and we think it's okay. It's not okay. We need to take a stand. Jaggi is just one example. I can give you countless of political pressure this government, this Sarkar have put on Sikh activists. Don't just think it's India, these guys here as well. So honestly, Shamsher, bring it back to the campaign, the 5 years, how much disruption. I've just given a few pointers to you. You just elaborate on those, please, before we finalise for the protest.
Yeah, honestly, like, the point that you mentioned earlier about like what happened today with the social media, about how the page was censored, that should be a real kind of reminder, like throughout this entire time of the last 5 years, we've seen an increase, an escalation in the approach, not only by the Indian government, but also by the Canadian government and the British government. We've seen travel restrictions placed on things, we've seen bank accounts being frozen, we've seen counter-terrorism police raiding people's houses, We've seen a continual online censorship of social media pages. First it was just those that spoke openly about Khalistan, but then it started hitting basics of Sikhi, started hitting everybody's pages. Anybody that started speaking about politic things, speaking about political issues, speaking about human rights issues, all of a sudden, bang, 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 everyone's account's banned in India. And that's going to only increase. The repression that we're seeing from the UK government is only going to increase. In India, it's only going to increase. They've already increased the Border Security Forces jurisdiction. They've already allocated all of the jail administration directly into the Delhi Sarkar. They're getting prepared for the next wave of uprisings in Punjab. And it's on us, how are we going to prepare for the next wave of dissent that is going to rest on our shoulders. And just listening to all the Najwan here today, it reminds me like how much Jaggi Kala spirit there is in the Pantha. My heart is full listening to all the Najwan gathered here today. ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਸੋਚ ਕਿੰਨੀ ਵਧੀਆ ਆ, ਕਿੰਨੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਦਿਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਦਰਦ ਆ ਪੰਥ ਵਾਸਤੇ. It's absolutely brilliant, and that's the space that we need to come together to celebrate, because it's not online. Those platforms can go. This is the space. Whether you're in Sangat, whether you're coming to Shaheed Smargams, the football tournaments, or the Mujahid, the protests, you're not coming for the British government, you're not coming for the Indian government, you're coming to come together in Sangat, you're coming for Jaggi, you're coming for all of those things in Singhiya that have given Qurbaniya, and we're coming to stand together with each other. Sikh protest is very different. So that space is really important, and nurturing that space matters. So all of us turning up, not just Najwan, but your whole family's turning up. We need a next generation of youngsters coming to those Panthic spaces the same way we all grew up in those Panthic spaces, because ye bahut lambi ladai hai. As Singhs in Punjab have said, that there's going to be more Sikh political prisoners. This is not going to finish until we've got our Azadi. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa.
So just to finalise and finish off, thank you to everyone who came today from your different organisations. I can't remember, I'm saying the same 4 or 5. I apologise. We had a slow start again because of censorship. Doesn't matter. Thursday the 3rd of November, the eve of Jaggi's 5 years, his wife hasn't seen him since. His family haven't seen him since. He's been abducted, illegally detained and tortured by the UK and Indian government. We're not happy. We're frustrated. Jaggi's suing the British government. We want you all to be there. Make sure you come. Massive shout out to the Free Jaggi Now campaign. They sent a message earlier. I'm going to read it again, just so those late people who arrived late and didn't hear. I'm just going to read out the message from the family that you may have missed. It's a very important message, and this is from the Jaggi family. They said, despite the UK government's reluctance to call for Jaggi's release, it is clear India is watching as protests have been arranged around the world. As a result, Jaggi was allowed to be call his family yesterday and speak to his wife for the very first time. We must continue to put pressure on the UK government, otherwise a British detention will continue. Without the support of the Sangat, we will not be able to do this on our own, and we call for you and all to attend the protest. Be Jaggi's voice. That's from the family. Last shout out, we did this last minute at Mr. Singh's. A massive shout out to them for letting us use their venue. Follow them. We should always use invest back into Sikh businesses. So a massive shout out to Mr. Singh's for supporting us as well, and letting the Free Jaggi Now campaign run a show with all these Najwan and youth and Sevadars in the community here today. Thank you all again. Massive shout out. If your Gurdwara haven't got bookings, make sure they're booking coaches. Make sure the Sangatai in your local area know about it. Get on the phone today. Make your calls, make your messages. Get everyone there Thursday. 11 protests across the globe. We're going to 10 Downing Street in the UK. Make sure you're there. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa. Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Thank you guys, everyone. Appreciate it.